look at that. Sorry for the prolonged intro. What is up, Flick fans, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the first ever... That's a lie. I've done the live stream thing before, but this is actually the first time I've done one in a show format. So here's what we're trying to do, right? This is the first of hopefully a long-running saga of shows on my channel. Whatever route I decide to go down, and whether or not this works with my apartment-level Wi-Fi, we shall see. But I'm so excited to do this today. Thank you guys for watching live. If you're not watching live, thank you for watching regardless. And it is nice to see all of these people in the chat room right now. I appreciate you guys commenting along as we go. Okay, here's the plan for today. So we're going to start out with our main topic. We are going to run through that. And if you guys want some questions answered, if you want to talk about specific things during the show, we have a live chat. We also have a super chat. Now, at the end of the show, I'm going to pick all of the super chat questions that I want to talk about and answer them. We'll talk about them, whatever you guys want to talk about. We will try to get through all of them. And then during the show, be sure to comment down below, comment in the live chat, whatever you guys want to do, and we will try to hit on all of these topics. Now, I didn't list out the topics in the description, but our main topic, if you can't tell from the thumbnail, is today we are talking about a very controversial topic, and that is the best Spider-Man of all time. Now, I wanted to limit it to the 3 live-action Spider-Man that we have seen on the big screen, but a quick shout-out to Miles Morales from Into the Spider-Verse, Peter B. Parker from Into the Spider-Verse, and Chris Pine's Peter Parker. Those are all incredible Spider-Men. If you haven't seen that movie, it's on Netflix. You can go check it out right now. But my goodness, guys, it's hard not to talk about those Spider-Men when talking about your favorite Spider-Man of all time. So that's our main topic today. Also, you guys can check out all of my social medias and YouTubes and Patreons and Letterboxds and Twits on all of those platforms at the Burkenator for the most part. Other than YouTube reviews, I am always talking about movies on other platforms. I appreciate you guys following me on all of those things. And once again, this is my first time doing this. This is a test, if you will. So if things go wrong, if things go awry, we lose Wi-Fi, if the internet goes out, I apologize in advance, but we're going to try our best to trudge through this. It's the first time. We're going to see how it goes. And let's start with some Spider-Man talk. And let's start with my number 3, and that is Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. That is my number 3 favorite Spider-Man of all time. And it's sad to put Andrew Garfield at the bottom of this list because while some people don't believe that he is a good Spider-Man, some people wouldn't even say he's a decent Spider-Man. I've seen the tweets, I've seen the comments, I've seen all of these things. Listen, I'm actually a fan of Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. Whether or not I love the movies that he's in, that's a different discussion. But if we are talking specifically the actor as the character, or just the character in general, I like what they did. I really did, for the most part, right? You get into Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and you start getting convoluted with the plot. You start getting convoluted with, you're bringing in his parents' backstory and you're going down that subplot that, frankly, I didn't think worked for the character. But his portrayal is really what the portrayal of this nerdy, geeky guy in 2012 through 14 would actually be in real life. And you have an Academy Award-nominated actor here. So the fact that, first of all, they didn't utilize him to his greatness, and I truly think he is a great actor, is disappointing. But second of all, you do have layers with this Spider-Man that you don't have in other portrayals, if you will, of Spider-Man, right? He showcases that emotion. And out of all 3 live-action Spider-Man, I'd say Andrew Garfield's is actually the one that is hit the hardest by tragedy, right? It seems like every single time we cut back to him or we get back into his life, he is facing something that, frankly, the other Spider-Man didn't get a chance to face, right? You have Tom Holland Spider-Man, who is, remarkably emotional in movies like Infinity War and Endgame, and even Spider-Man Far From Home. But it just feels like every 5 minutes something is happening to Andrew Garfield, and spoilers ahead. But my goodness, guys, you have Uncle Ben, and okay, that happened to Tobey Maguire in the first one. But then you dive deep more into, in this version of the film, what happened with his parents. You start getting this relationship with Gwen Stacy, and then the tragedy that happens to her. It's just it's a showcase for emotions, and that's what I think Andrew Garfield did really well as this character. And I also believe that he was one of the more diverse, not just Spider-Man, characters that we've seen in a long time in terms of where he went and the depths that he was able to get into as this character. And all in all, I thought he did a good job. Now, the reason he's number 3, and it feels like I've been praising him nonstop for 5 minutes, the reason he is number 3 is because the movies surrounding him just weren't the best. I think Amazing Spider-Man 1 it's an okay film, right? I really enjoyed it when I first saw it, but the more I go back and visit it, the more I'm just like, well, it's not the best. And then Amazing Spider-Man 2, for me, is really what cements this character as one that, comparing it to the other two Spider-Man, it's not going to leave the impact, right, that the other Spider-Man left. So I think that Andrew Garfield, in my opinion, is number 3. Now, 3C Films, we have a super chat. We're going to go ahead and hit on it. This is from 3C Films, my boy, Chris. If you guys do not follow him on YouTube, please go and check him out. He says, Andrew Garfield, number 3, friendship over. Real quality live stream, bud. Ooh, thoughts on the 2020 younger cast for the Ghostbusters? We will definitely hit on that here in a bit. But you know what? It's a great example of Andrew Garfield is a Spider-Man for, may not be my favorite Spider-Man, may not be your favorite Spider-Man, but there is a large group of people out there, especially on Twitter, that I've seen that, they come to the defense of Andrew Garfield, and they will claim that he is possibly the best Spider-Man out there. And this is one of those cases when I look at, the love for Andrew Garfield, and I get it. The guy is a top-tier actor. The movies were high quality, regardless of if you like the plot or not. That's the problems I had with the films. But in terms of Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, I think he did a good job. But you have the nostalgia playing in with Tobey Maguire. You have the comic book accuracy of Tom Holland. And even though they've taken Tom Holland's story into new territory, right, he's still a very comic book accurate portrayal of Peter Parker. And those are really the only reasons why I have those other two above Andrew Garfield. All right, Austin. You've talked about number 3. What is number 2 on your list? Who's your second favorite Spider-Man? Well, this is a tough one because regardless of which route that I end up going down, there's going to be someone on the other side arguing strongly. But I don't look at that as a negative, right? I look at that as we have had 3, if you want to say 3, but 2 incredible live-action portrayals of Spider-Man. And regardless of who you hold closer to your heart, right, they're both awesome, and it's really cool that we have 2 amazing interpretations. How many characters can we say that for? Batman, Superman, maybe, if you're a big fan of Henry Cavill and Christopher Reeve, but that's about it, right? How many characters can we say have been portrayed in 2 phenomenals, or 3, if you count Andrew Garfield, incredible ways in live action, and we're not even talking about Spider-Verse yet. All right, who's my number 2? All right, so here we go. Number 2 is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. He is my number 2 favorite Spider-Man of all time in the live-action world. Listen, I have the world's biggest amount of nostalgia for Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I truly think he did a great job. There are times in the movies, and I understand, but there are times in the movies when maybe he's overacting, or maybe he's doing something that's a little too cheesy. We look at Spider-Man 3, and I don't necessarily blame Tobey for that. You can tell that Tobey Maguire, he's not the biggest fan of that film. But Spider-Man 1, Spider-Man 2, you dive into the world of this man as Peter Parker, and you understand where he's coming from. You are with him every single step of the way. And the showcase of what some people will say is overacting, the showcase of emotions, is some of the best I have ever seen for a character, the character of Spider-Man, yes, but for a superhero in general, because you can just tell how intense he is as the character. Now, some people take issue with that version of Mary Jane. Because, and I understand why, because in every single movie, it's kind of a rinse and repeat formula. I love Spider-Man 2. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. But, you know, you have Spider-Man 1, Mary Jane gets taken and she's being held ransom and Spider-Man's got to save her. Spider-Man 2, Mary Jane is taken, she's being held, and it's the same rinse and repeat formula all the way until Spider-Man 3. And that's one reason why I enjoyed, you know, The Amazing Spider-Man. Similar things happen, but not the exact same thing. And then Spider-Man Homecoming Far From Home, it's been a completely different situation. But I truly think Tobey is that, you know, embodiment of what Spider-Man should be. And what he carries for me, and the reason why he's my number 2, pushing that number 1, is he carries hope. Tobey's Spider-Man is full of constant hope, and no matter what happens to him, and yes, he's getting advice by Aunt May, and yes, he's being carried by his friends and his family and his relationships all throughout, but he always has that sense of hope, and he always understands that what is happening to him is, one, not just going to help him, but it's going to help everyone around him because he's becoming and embodying this superhero. And, you know, it's a completely different situation because in Tom Holland's world, there are more superheroes. So you're kind of just one of the many. But in Tobey Maguire's world, as far as we know, you are the superhero. And that, for me, is just, it's an incredible thing to explore. And it's something that I thought Tobey Maguire did a really good job of. Then you get into Spider-Man 3, and everything starts, I mean, it gets a little wacky, it gets a little crazy, but once again, I don't necessarily blame Tobey for that, and I don't even blame Sam Raimi. I think Sam Raimi did a wonderful job with that movie. It's studio interference, they wanted to bring Venom in. The way that movie was written, it turned out to be something that I don't think the filmmakers intended on it being. But that's okay. You know, we still got 2 out of 3 great movies, and some people love Spider-Man 3. Once again, it is all opinion-based. Everything that we are talking about today is just, nothing is fact, right? You can say that, yeah, Tom Holland's easily the best Spider-Man. You can say that, yeah, Andrew Garfield's the best Spider-Man. But it's all just the passion and the love that we have for this movies, and that is what I believe the best part about it. Let's talk about my number 1 favorite Spider-Man of all time. And clearly, it is Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Now, this wasn't a major victory, right? It wasn't like, oh, yeah, this is easy, going to put him at number 1. I had to sit back and I had to think about this. I had to throw Andrew Garfield's name into the bunch and just, you know, think about the impact that those movies left. Not as great as the original Spider-Man trilogy and Tom Holland's movies right now. And you look at the kid, I mean, we've only had his version of Spider-Man since 2016, and he's been in how many movies now? He's been in, what, 5 movies? 4 movies? That's incredible. We've never seen that before with the Spider-Man, so this kid has only been with us 3 years, and he has had just as much screen time as any of the other characters. Yes, superhero movies have changed, but that is a pretty cool thing. So maybe it's the quantity of Tom Holland Spider-Man. But I am hoping to talk about the quality of his Spider-Man, and the reason why I feel like his is not by far the best, like I said, but his is just the best, is because you look at the comic book portrayal. In terms of story, I would think the best we have had is Tobey Maguire's because it follows the Uncle Ben storyline. It follows the, you know, we have the Green Goblin, then Doc Ock, and it's more comic book accurate in that sense, but the portrayal of Tom Holland as Spider-Man is just to a T. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were both, I believe, 27 when they got cast as Spider-Man. Tom Holland, first of all, he looked like a 16-year-old, but I believe he was like 19, 20 when he got cast, so he was closer of age. And I feel that way about all of the kids in his high school. Some of the supporting players in Spider-Man Homecoming did not necessarily work for me, but for the most part, I feel like this was a more accurate Spider-Man in high school, dealing with high school things. And then you get into Spider-Man Homecoming, and it is just a John Hughes-esque feeling, you know, quirky elements, cheesy news shows. It's everything you feel like high school is nowadays. And I do understand why people take issue with the fact that, well, he doesn't work for a newspaper. Why doesn't he work for a newspaper? That's not comic book accurate. Where is J. Jonah Jameson? Well, newspapers aren't really I'm not going to say they're not a thing anymore, but it's 2019. That just feels like something that's outdated. And that's one thing I always like to look at in comic books is, yes, we're changing things. Are we necessarily changing them for the better? That's all up to interpretation. But when you look at someone who works for a newspaper, you have to kind of update that. You have to change things around. And a lot of people take issue with the fact that we didn't go down the Uncle Ben storyline. I get it. I understand that. Uncle Ben is an integral character, but we've done that twice. Why not make Robert Downey Jr. not his Uncle Ben? Because, I want the fact that he had an Uncle Ben, but make him that emotional gut punch that we can explore right now. And then later on down the line, if fans call for it enough, we can hit on an Uncle Ben and talk about his impact. But right now, we need to do something a bit different. And I get that. I understand why they wanted to change that up in this version, this iteration of Spider-Man. Those are just a few of the reasons why I think his Spider-Man is so great. And you just have a really likable kid. Tom Holland is super fun, super quirky, regardless of what you feel about, a little bit too much CGI. I get it. Listen, when I was watching Spider-Man Far From Home, I loved the movie. But there were times when I looked at his suit and I wish we could have went back to, Tobey Maguire's suit. Or even The Amazing Spider-Man 2. As much as I thought that movie fell a bit flat, I thought Andrew Garfield's suit in that film was top-notch. I mean, man, it was awesome. And there were so many great things about those first two versions of the suits. Now, if you haven't heard, recently some people have been coming out and saying Marvel Studios had to change integral parts of the Spider-Man character to use him in those movies. And if that's the case, then I understand why they changed up the suit so much. I understand why they're not necessarily hitting on Uncle Ben. I understand why we don't have a Mary Jane, we just have an MJ. But that's okay, right? As we go on, if they don't keep Tom Holland, which I think they will for quite a while, we'll get another version of Spider-Man. That's just the way this goes. Spider-Man is that important of a character, and I truly believe that he is going to remain with us, whether it's Tom Holland or not, as long as literally all of us are alive. Same case with Batman, same case with Superman, eventually, if he ever comes back. But we'll just have to see where it goes. Regardless, Tom Holland is such an incredible actor. I mean, the kid is going to go on to become a massive star, but he will always be known as, Mark Hamill was always known as Luke Skywalker. He will always be known as Spider-Man to many. And for me, that is awesome. But once again, doesn't mean he is clearly by far the best Spider-Man. He is my favorite. He is many people's favorites, but doesn't mean he's the best. So what say you guys? Listen, those are my thoughts. That's my interpretation on all of these characters. Are these Spider-Mans, like I've been saying, are they up to par for you? Has there been one that has hit you harder than the others? Or are you still waiting to see your favorite Spider-Man? Heck, is Miles Morales better than all three of them? I would completely understand if he was. But at the end of the day, it's okay. Regardless of who is your favorite, we all love the character of Spider-Man. We are so lucky to have him, and I can't wait to see what they do next. All right, guys, so that was topic number 1. And, speaking of Spider-Man, there was a story in the news this last week that I wanted to hit on, and this isn't necessarily topic number 2. This kind of sticks with topic number 1, but Sam Raimi came out earlier this week, and he talked about the movies, but he also talked about the potential, or what never happened, aka Spider-Man 4, his version of Spider-Man 4, and, I wanted to see that version. I know many people wanted to see that version after Spider-Man 3. It's completely understandable why we didn't get a Spider-Man 4, but Sam Raimi, when talking about producing his brand new movie Crawl, he said, I think about it all the time. It's hard not to because each summer another Spider-Man film comes out. So when you have an unborn one, you can't help but to think what might have been, but I try to focus on what will be and not look into the past. So the reason why I brought this up is because I was thoroughly excited for Spider-Man 4. Even though I was disappointed with Spider-Man 3, I love Sam Raimi as a director. The elements that he brings into his, well, Superman movies one, but movies in general, it's just different than what we get in other horror films. It's different than what we get in other superhero movies. Yes, you can compare all of the Spider-Man films, but you can't compare the tone of the Raimi films to the other movies. You can't compare his sensibilities to the other Spider-Man films because they're just so different. For some, that level of different doesn't work. For me, it worked super well, and I thoroughly enjoyed what he brought to his Spider-Man films, and even what he brought to Spider-Man 3. Once again, I blame the studio more for that than anything. But man, I was excited for his Spider-Man 4. So apparently he was going down the Black Cat route, right? He was going to bring in the Lizard. So we saw Dr. Connors' his kind of progression through the first few movies. And he was also considering the Vulture, which we later got in Michael Keaton, and I'm glad we did. But man, I believe he was also considering John Malkovich for the role. I would have loved to have seen his portrayal of the Vulture, and I would have just loved to have seen Raimi's version of Spider-Man 4. Now, a few weeks ago, that countdown came out on Twitter, and it started with number 4, and everybody's like, oh my god, Spider-Man 4. Listen, if they want to go down the route of a comic book version, even if we don't get a movie version, a comic book version of Spider-Man 4, I would be more giddy than a schoolgirl. I would be the most excited person on the face of the earth. Or if they want to, figure out how to do a multiverse at some point and bring in a Spider-Man with a Spider-Man with a Spider-Man, I would also be very giddy at that point. I would love to see a Tobey, Andrew, and Tom Holland, as you can see in this picture, Spider-Man just teaming up. And heck, bring in Shamik Moore, who played Miles Morales in Spider-Verse, because while he's a bit older than his portrayal in those movies, you can use the in-game time jump and bring him in to play a live-action iteration, an older version of the Miles that we got from Spider-Verse. And I'm sure multiple people have pitched this, but Sony, listen, if you are listening to this or you're watching this, please consider this. Look at the picture. I mean, you've even got the PlayStation Spider-Man, but just look at the picture. I would cry. If I heard this movie was announced, I would freak out, and I don't think I would be the only one. I think literally everyone would freak out because this is what the fans want. This would be amazing. Look at I'm flipping out right now. Just looking at this and imagining the potential of this Spider-Man team-up movie, man. It would be so cool. But alas, we have to wait and see what happens. Listen, I love the MCU. I love where it's going right now. I love what they did with Far From Home. But if you want to take a little break and pluck Tom Holland out for like 2 or 3 years and give us a Spider-Verse movie, I think everyone would be completely and utterly on board with that. So that was just a little chit-chat about a potential Spider-Man 4 and where we could go with the Tobey Maguire Spider. I can't even believe I'm talking about that. Give him a Logan-style movie. Grizzle him down. Give him a beard. Make it a Spider-Man that just doesn't want to be the Spider-Man anymore. I know we've kind of seen that with Tobey's Spider-Man, but that would be cool. Just bring him back, Sony. You can do that. You have the potential. All right, let's move on to our next story. And this is one that is, I'm not going to say this is fact. This is all just rumor and speculation, as is pretty much everything in the movie news nowadays. But this is a picture of the Eternals. And the reason why I bring this picture up is because there's a story that broke. And Marvel is, they're getting prepared for Comic-Con. They're talking about all the movies that they're going to pitch to the fans and the audience. They're going to pitch their entire slate, right? So, once again, just rumor, just speculation. But recently, a number of inactive Facebook pages were discovered, which were all set to private, and they're unable to view. Now, this is something that fans could have easily did just to get a story out of. This is something that could have nothing to do with the Marvel Universe. But there is potential that Marvel created these Facebook pages, set them to private, and they're getting prepped for their live-action slate. I don't know if I believe it. Let's talk about what the movies are. So we start with Marvel's Eternals, and that's the picture you guys see here. That's a Facebook page that was created, set to private. We know that movie is coming. We know they're doing pre-production right now on it. We don't know if this is a legitimate Facebook page for the potential of this movie. But hey, it sounds pretty promising so far because we know we're getting the movie. Next up is Black Widow. Okay, we know we're getting Black Widow. So far, so good. Now here's the one that might break the bank. Facebook.com/Marvel's Iron Heart. Now recently, Robert Downey Jr. came out and said that he wanted to see Ironheart replace Iron Man in the MCU. My thing about this is, why would Robert Downey Jr. say that if he knew that that was coming? It feels like something that could have been a slip of the tongue, but he didn't act like he regretted saying it. So once again, this could easily be a fan saying, oh, he said Ironheart, I can make people believe this. Next up is Facebook.com/Young Avengers. This is interesting. The roster of Young Avengers could easily be made up of characters that we've met before, such as Cassie Lang, or new additions. And this could be a good way to kind of change the Avengers up and not go down the same route we've went before, because, you know, we've had Avengers 1, we've had Avengers 2, 3, and 4. Now we can have a Young Avengers 1 and then go back to the normal Avengers, or we can have a Facebook.com/Dark Avengers, which is the next page. So instead of going down another Avengers route, we can split this up. We can have a Young Avengers and we can have a Dark Avengers. Now, for this to have needed to happen, I feel like Norman Osborn needed to be introduced in Far From Home. It is a very good possibility that we could move into the Dark Avengers territory at some point. And if you guys don't know what the Dark Avengers are, it's just kind of an amalgamation of superheroes that are a bit more BA than your average superheroes. They don't care to get a little darker than you need to. In the comics, they've had Iron Patriot. They've had different iterations of Captain Marvel. Wolverine has been a part of the Dark Avengers, and Spider-Man in the Venom symbiote. Right? Seeing all of these characters come together to create a Dark Avengers could be very cool, and it could be something that I think fans would love to see. Now, I don't think those are all of the movies coming out. We have heard that they're working on a Doctor Strange 2, so why is that not a Facebook page? We have heard Nova. We have heard rumors about the Sentry. We have had rumors about Black Knight, Shang-Chi. But maybe Marvel just hasn't gotten around to create those Facebook pages yet. Listen, I'm not saying these are legit, and if we do get other Avengers movies, I think they're 4 to 5 years down the road. I don't think we're getting one anytime soon. But that's what this is all about, right? It's all about speculation. It's all about what could come down the line, and that's what I love talking about on this channel. So, what do you guys think? Do you think we're going to get another Avengers, a straight Avengers movie down the line? I definitely think we will eventually. Or do you think they could go Avengers, Dark Avengers, Young Avengers? We know we're getting Black Widow. We know we're getting the Eternals. And there are rumors about so many more. Well, we'll know next weekend. So next weekend when I come back, I think the topic or the main thing that we're going to talk about is Comic-Con. We're just going to run down everything that happened during Comic-Con. So maybe next week I'm sitting here talking about those versions of the Avengers, or we're just talking about Eternals and Black Widow and Shang-Chi and all of the things that we know that are coming. My final story that I'm going to talk about today, and then we'll just get into a few topics here and there, maybe some things you guys had to say in the Super Chat. By the way, if you're just now joining, if you have a question for me that you want answered, or you have something that you want to talk about, maybe a topic, we can start a new topic and talk about it, because I don't really have a time frame. I'm hoping to keep this under an hour, but we'll just have to see. But you guys just let me know in that down below, and keep chatting along with this conversation, because I know there's probably a great conversation going on right now. Man, I need some help. I need to get my wife in here. She'll help me out. Okay, so the final story that I wanted to talk about, not everybody cares as much as I do about this. Oh, man, this stinks. Okay, so it looks like the Power Rangers is getting another reboot. So it was asked earlier this week to star Doc Ray Montgomery, who played Jason Scott, a.k.a. the Red Ranger in Power Rangers. He says that there is another Power Rangers movie being worked on, but it will not be connected to the movie that he starred in. He said, I think there's a movie in the works. It's not with me and this cast, so yes, but not with us. Listen, I know many people who did not like this movie, and I completely understand why. It wasn't an extremely accurate representation of what we had as kids, the Power Rangers that we knew and that we loved. It's not the best movie in the world, but I had a lot of fun with it. I really did. I had fun with these characters. I liked how they kind of dove into the fact that they were teenagers and they were coming together as a team. I thought that was really fun. Once again, not the best movie, but I was kind of like, I want to see a sequel. I want to see a sequel to this movie. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me if this is something that is, I have to have it. Like, I have to have the next Spider-Man film after Far From Home. I have to see the end of this Star Wars trilogy, regardless of if it's going to knock it out of the park or not. I didn't have to have a new Power Rangers movie. But this is kind of a bummer, because I wanted to see what they were going to do with it. I really did. I wanted to see them correct the mistakes of the first one. I wanted to see, the possibility of Montgomery coming back, first of all. But this cast, man, this cast was awesome. It truly was. It's not a cast that you look at and you say, oh, they have pure A-list talent here. It's not a cast that you look at and you say, well, clearly there's a lead that's going to go on and be a massive movie star. No, but it is a cast that interested me, and it's one that I would have liked to have seen come back. Unfortunately, we're not getting another Power Rangers film. Kind of stinks, but you know what? We move on. We move forward. And I appreciate you guys joining me along today with this live stream. All of the topics are now out of the way. Once again, it's just this is a thing that I planned a little bit for, and I'm like, we're going to see how it goes. If you don't like the format, let me know. If you want to see some more things happen in the future, let me know. I want to give a shout out real quick to Wirecast, who helped me out with this video. An incredible live streaming platform. If you guys want to go check them out, go to their website right now. Seriously, huge thank you to that. But now I want to get into a few things that you guys have been talking about in the chat. I saw a lot of incredible things about Spider-Man in there. All of you guys giving your lists on who your favorite Spider-Man is, who your least favorite Spider-Man is, and why. And that's the important reason, right? You can give your list all day long, but why is Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield, why is he your Spider-Man? Why does he speak to you? So I want to hit on a few of the Super Chats real quick. 3C Films came out and said, thoughts on the Ghostbusters 2020 younger cast? Listen, I love this. I'm excited to see the original cast come back. Absolutely. Wasn't the biggest fan of the reboot. I wasn't freaking out when it came out like, how dare you? I'm like, all right, I'll give it a chance. I saw the movie, kind of fell flat. Wasn't very funny for me. But I'm excited to see the original. We're seeing this a lot, though, with Terminator and, movies in that vein, bringing back the other cast. Maybe not talking as much about certain sequels. We see that Terminator is kind of excluding everything after Terminator 2. I don't think Ghostbusters is going to do that, but they are bringing back the OGs that I think nostalgia at the end of the day is going to get fans back in the theaters. And for me, that's really exciting. Plus, you have all of these young actors coming in, and this is a way to set up the new cast. Look at a movie like Logan, completely different situation, but you have the old Wolverine, and you have kind of the young Wolverine, and the possibility of taking her and starting a new franchise until Disney buys you out, and then you just forget that ever happened. I want to see X-23 back. We have another Super Chat. Okay, film recommendations. All right, here we go. City of God. You know what? Haven't seen City of God. I like that. It's about a man who has been locked in a basement for 35 years and sexually abused by his mom. Oh my goodness. Not expected, but you know what? I am always watching movies that I have never seen before, one, because I'm trying to fill out my repertoire of films. But I love watching movies that people recommend to me. I had one recently. I can't even remember what I watched, but somebody recommended a movie for me, and I absolutely loved it. It may be a while before I get to that film, but because, one, I'm watching through all of the Tarantino films. I've been trying to watch Pulp Fiction for a week now. New things are always coming out, having to deal with that, but I truly appreciate the recommendations. And if we have no more Super Chats, one, I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this. More of a test video than anything, but it gave me a chance to do something a little different on this channel and do something that I love doing, and that is talking about movies. And two, to everyone who joined in live, whether you liked the video or you didn't like the video, or you gave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I appreciate your support. I appreciate you guys helping out this channel, and I truly appreciate the discussion in the comments and or the live chat down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video once again. I will be back. If you guys want to see this again, let me know next Sunday. And if it continues to go well, we may make this more of a bi-weekly or a twice-a-week kind of thing rather than a once-a-week kind of thing. And we may bring in some special guests. I know we had a live chat from 3C Films. And, buddy, if you're still watching, I would love to have you on this eventually down the line. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Truly appreciate everything you do for me. And I will see you very soon.